this is what forgiveness is not.
Great.
Condoning, excusing, pardoning, justifying, erasing, absolving. It is not suggesting justice be shrugged off or consequences forgiven. It is extremely difficult to forgive in a culture of no consequence.
Being able to forgive someone that isn't reliant on them participating is deeply challenging.
Yeah.
And has to come from a place, like you say, of peace.
Yeah.
That I actually don't care if that person accepts my forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because once I've forgiven them, tick.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about them anymore. I can think about them if I want to, but I'm not tied to them in the way that I was. Welcome back to another episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. On this podcast, we spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life, and culture intersect. I am your host, Pastor Jonty, and as always, my co-host is Rev Ness.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. You're really good at that intro now.
You'd think I'd be getting all right at, given we've done, this is episode 114 or 15
Yeah,
or something.
you're really good at those lines. They're just like, I watch you each time you say it and it just rolls off your tongue like it's deep in your core, brother.
Yeah, as soon as I get the hang of it and it's like
Yeah,
muscle
you're on
memory,
it.
we'll have
Yeah.
to change it and I'll have to learn it. I'll have to learn a new one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Hey, what's been grinding your gears?
Yeah, well, should we do Event Central?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
All right.
Play the music.
So, if you're new to Event Central and you're going, what the heck? What's that music? What's going on?
How good's the music?
I think it's pretty good.
Pretty cool.
I'm a little bit biased. I did write it and
Yeah,
perform
I know.
it. But I should release it. Hey.
Beat your chest, Jonty.
I should release, because it's from a demo from, there's a whole EP. I'll just say there's a whole EP of that style of music that I've
So cool.
demoed out and I've written lyrics for.
You should.
I've said it. I'm gonna have to do it now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah, done. Vent Central. One of us gets an opportunity to vent about something.
Yeah.
And just get it off their chest.
Come on.
So, it's my turn this week.
Yes.
And like the best Vent Centrals, this is super petty.
Oh,
It's super petty.
But that's what makes it so great.
But it makes me so mad.
Yeah, go.
It's it's a certain type of behavior
Yep.
that I encounter a lot where people have criticisms or opinions on things based on nothing at all.
Oh, I love that.
Strong opinions
Yes.
based on nothing at all.
Yes.
So I remember I had this conversation with a friend a while ago and we laugh about it now, but I remember getting so irrationally mad where they were talking about how To Kill a Mockingbird is a terrible novel.
Based
And I'm like, oh, interesting. Why do you say? I think it's, I thought it was fairly common knowledge that it was a classic and quite important piece of American literature. But
Have they read
and
the
they said,
novel?
oh, yeah, no, I read it in year 7 and I couldn't finish it. I got 3 chapters in and never finished it. It's no good. And I said, well, so you haven't read it.
Yeah.
So you don't understand why it's great, or you don't have the relevant information to have an informed opinion.
And you're 12.
You were 12 at the time. And that's like a small scale example, but I see it all the time. I remember I saw it a lot on social media and on the news and in media when Brexit was.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The UK were in the middle of that whole shit show. Just people with strong opinions. Based on nothing at all.
Yep.
Based on nothing at all.
Yep.
We actually saw a lot of that during the Voice to Parliament discussion last year. I saw it a lot and started to name it, where I'd see people talking about it and having super strong opinions on it.
Yeah.
Based on either misinformation or just no knowledge at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that kind of escalated to the Peter Dutton stance on it, which was, if you don't know, vote no.
Yes.
It's that is the stupidest, most regressive way to approach decision making, where it should be, if you don't know, maybe you'd learn about it so you can make an informed decision, as opposed to if you don't know, just vote no. I don't understand it. So it's like...
It's appealing to the dumb ones, mate.
Yeah. So I don't know. That really, really gives me the shits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There you go. Does this resonate with you? I'm sure it does.
It definitely does. And we're right in the middle at the moment on the Biden, Trump, Kamala.
At time of recording, Biden has just stood down.
Yeah, that's right. So I live with an American. I've got 2 kids that are American citizens, and they really jump into American politics and want to understand because... You know, they pay tax in America. They've got social security numbers.
Yeah.
They really care about what's happening there. And we've got family there. And so our home at nighttime is all about catching up on that.
Yeah.
So it drives me nuts then when I go to Pilates and some chick will make a comment that they know nothing about.
Yeah.
And I think, I've learned, I think it's a sign of maturity just to say nothing.
Yeah.
Just because it's not worth it. I might miss the next exercise, which is more important for my quads than a conversation about being right about politics. I've learned to shut my mouth in that space. But we go full on robust at home. It's unreal. Right. It's tops. It's great conversation.
Yeah, I think something I'm comfortable with is not knowing everything about everything.
Yeah.
And I think there's this thing with a lot of, it's part of our culture is to have to know everything about everything and having to have an opinion about everything.
Yeah.
There is plenty of things that I know nothing about that I was going, people ask me, I don't know. I actually don't have an opinion.
Yeah, I'm keen to know what you think though.
Exactly.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so...
Oh, that's a good one. I like that, Vent Central.
Gives me the shits, man.
Yeah. Oh, mate.
Shut up. Anyway, that was Vent Central.
Play the music.
So today, for the main segment of this podcast, before we wrap up with an audience question, we're going to be talking about forgiveness.
Oh, it makes me nervous. I get like a nervous feeling in my tummy at the thought of this podcast today.
It's almost I think at the beginning of this year, back 6 or 7 months ago, we did an episode about this, the idea of revenge.
Oh, yeah.
This is almost a companion piece. It'd be interesting after we record this, I might actually go back and listen to what we talked about there. I'm sure there might be a little bit of overlap or maybe even some growth for us in comparing these conversations. But you have a really, really fascinating document that's going to kind of inform our conversation.
Well, certainly what this author feels about forgiveness anyway, and maybe we can talk in and around what these experts say forgiveness is through the lens of our own personal life experience and then maybe through the lens of us being Christians and what's expected of us as Christians when it comes to the big question of forgiveness. So the document is an excerpt from a book called Bright Shining, How Grace Changes Everything by the author Julia Baird. And we will have this down in our show notes so people can go and have a look at it. And I'm looking at from chapter 12 and it's on when you can't forgive, which I think is really interesting.
Yep.
And a colleague sent this to me and I thought it was just, I think she's probably trying to poke me because she knows that I have trouble with forgiveness. Yeah. On big stuff, little stuff, piece of cake, mate. But on big issues, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I'm not a fan on forgiveness when somebody doesn't say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, the whole idea of it's so much easier to forgive and it's so much more healing and more powerful when somebody says, shit, I'm sorry for doing that or saying that or being that particular way. I could really see that you're hurt there. I'm really sorry for my part in that. That is a beautiful piece of, I describe it as like a salve to your heart, to the hurting piece of your body and your mind. And I find that kind of quality, I'm sorry, very easy to forgive. I really do. I find that a beautiful thing, because to say sorry takes balls, doesn't it?
It does.
To own up to your stuff. And I think it has really profound healing qualities in that. What do you think about that?
There's so much in there that I think we're going to get into, but like, what I ever and having talked about this off camera for a little bit to kind of lay some groundwork, I have this really strong sense now that forgiveness that depends on the recipient's apology,
the I'm sorry,
I think isn't sturdy enough to withstand those bigger things that we have trouble forgiving.
Well, because dickheads don't say I'm sorry.
That's right. And we'll get into this, but there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. And I think that forgiveness is actually as much about you, if not more, about you than it is the person that you're forgiving. Because when someone does something wrong against you, when someone wrongs you, often that thing and that person just ends up living rent-free in your head.
Yeah.
And until you forgive them, they will continue to live rent-free in your head. And the act of forgiveness it is about forgiving them for their sake, but it's actually about, there's a Nadia Bolz-Weber quote that we'll probably get to at some point in here about like, forgiveness is like using a pair of bolt cutters to snap the chains to being chained to an asshole or something. I can't remember exactly what the quote is, but I love that. Like, it's not about, like, the other person can choose to participate in that if they want, but at that point it's up to them. The act of forgiving is actually about freeing yourself from that person and their actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
So I don't know if that might give us some nice little contextual groundwork to move forward from.
And I think it's important to say that my inability to forgive is linked with an inability to forget about atrocities that happened to me as a child. So now's a good time for a warning, because I may say things that upset people and they may want to tune out of this podcast. So do you want to give them the warning now, Jonty?
Yeah, I mean...
Just warning.
We're going to go there. So
yeah,
for people that are possibly sensitive to or might be triggered by some discussion about sexual abuse.
Yep.
You know, we when we talk about this topic, it's not something that we can avoid.
No. Because
it is a part of your story.
Yeah.
So
just warning, please, if you, I don't want to traumatize anybody else, but if you feel like that might upset you, please tune out now and catch us on the next episode. Yeah.
Or skip ahead.
Or maybe we'll say, I'll be clever enough to say warning, and then you tune out.
There's also,
how about that?
There's also chapters with timestamps.
Great.
So if you go down below, you can skip ahead.
Oh, see, that's good. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So what Julia Baird says here is she says, the assumption often tends to be that it is good to forgive, even that you must forgive. You know, she says, even if in many cases forgiveness can be poison for the abused, forgiveness can too often be mistaken for submission, obedience, compliance. Forgive your abuser, forgive your rapist, forgive the partner who cheats and treats you like dirt, forgive the boss who shouts at you in the office, forgive the entire patriarchal white colonist system for insisting pain and suffering is part of your lot.
So I think there's lots of, there's heaps in there. I think this idea that forgiveness sometimes isn't a good thing, and it uses the example of like forgiving your abuser, for example, or forgiving a boss that treats you poorly at work. I think there's a type of forgiveness that absolutely isn't helpful. It's the type of forgiveness that let's say my boss, who technically is you, my boss like chews me out at work and just gives me an absolute spray and yells and yells and yells and puts me down. There's a type of forgiveness that lets that person know that what they did was okay.
Yeah.
So I'd say, oh, Ness, I forgive you. What you're doing, if you're doing it in a certain way, is actually saying, Ness, what you did sucked, but it's okay because I can forgive you for that, which kind of gives you the okay
to do it again. That's not right.
There's a more rigorous type of forgiveness that lets me say, what you did wasn't okay. And I'm actually telling you now that I'm not going to accept that behavior from now on. And I forgive you. So it's really interesting that Baird puts this forward as like that forgiveness sometimes isn't a good thing or isn't helpful or is actually a burden on the person who is the receiver of the abuse
the
the victim. Because I think a lot of the time we are trained to think about forgiveness as this thing, where you let the other person know that what they did was actually kind of okay, and I'm the sort of person that will just forgive you and accept that behaviour. I don't think,
so come and shit down my neck again.
Yeah,
because I'm a doormat.
Yeah.
She says this: a woman who refuses to forgive is countercultural, and her rage is painted as extreme, pathological. So I think I must be countercultural then, and I must be extreme and pathological. I don't know if I'm refusing to forgive. I'm taking issue with forgiveness. I find it hard to forgive.
So maybe for context, people that may not know.
Yeah, just forgive the perpetrators that abused me as a child.
Yeah.
I talked about it in the fruits of the Spirit just recently in church, and I described my own self as walking around still in a pooey nappy. I don't want to take my nappy off and I've got poop attached to me. My lack of forgiveness is like a pooey nappy that I just am happy to sit in. Do you know what I mean? And as much as I can say that and own that, I find the wounding is so deep that I just can't. And one of them's dead, and I think it makes it easier for me knowing he's dead. I like knowing he's dead. I actually rejoiced when I knew he died.
Do you think out of a sense of retribution or a sense of justice, or what's that about, do you think?
No, it's not that. It's relief. It's relief that the baddie is now gone. The big, scary baddie in my child brain can't hurt me anymore. So
they can't hurt other people.
No, that's right. The baddie, like Ding Dong, the witch is dead. It's kind of, I often use that analogy, from Follow the Yellow Brick Road, that he's dead and I'm safe. And when I looked at him, and when you look at him in the when he was in court, he was a old man on a breathing apparatus. One day turned up in a wheelchair. I thought it was bullshit. I thought he was just bunging that on. And I remember the police saying to me, that there's hospitals in jail. It's going to be fine. But the guy just died. And so he really was sick, couldn't breathe. Good way to go, I suppose, can't breathe. So he choked to death, really, on lack of oxygen. See, I'll cop hate for saying that.
And you have in the past.
I have so much hate for, I'm a minister, Jesus forgave me for all my sins, I should forgive them. Well, I struggle with that. I'm being really honest about it. And I even cop it in my own family about forgiveness. I'm very black and white on that matter. And my lack of forgiveness gets weaponized against me for not forgiving.
What's stopping you, do you think?
I think I think probably the wounding. I may need some more therapy. I wonder. I think it's the wounding and the fact that I wish I could forget it. I wish my forgiveness is linked to forgetness, and I can't forget because the wounding presents itself in my day-to-day life at times, sometimes more prevalent than others. Mm-hmm. So I will have just a basic life experience that we all go through. How many times a year do you go to the dentist, Jonty?
At least once.
Okay. Yeah. I go twice because I am so fearful of something going wrong with my teeth that I want to be proactive in caring for them because I don't want something to go wrong, because the trauma of ongoing dental care it becomes a deeply traumatising post-traumatic stress issue for me. So, for example, you go to the dentist, you go, I'm going to duck off to the dentist in my lunch break. You're going to piss off to the dentist. The worst part about the dentist for you, am I right in saying, is it's going to cost you $140,
yeah.
Right? You sit there, you're looking at the dentist, they're flossing, they're telling you you've got a bit of gingivitis, you have to floss more, you leave, you pay $140, you go, shit, I'm glad that's done for another year.
Yeah.
Have I got that right?
Pretty bang on, yeah.
Do you feel emotional or stressed after it? Does it cause you any ongoing trauma?
There used to be, like, when I had a couple of fillings when I was
not good.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
That sucked. And for a little while, like, the idea of going to the dentist, like, really freaked me out. But, like, that kind of passed after a few years. And as an adult, I don't really think twice about it anymore.
Yeah, just do it. You know you're going to get through it, right? And it's okay.
Yeah.
And then do you go back to work after that? Or do you have to? Do you take a day off or 2 days off after a clean?
I've never. Yeah, no. If it's just a regular clean, I'll just go back to work.
Go back to work.
Yeah.
And do you just able to engage back in your work and stuff?
Yeah. It's like getting a car serviced or something.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's just a part of which I imagine.
It's not like that for me.
Not the case for you.
No. So for me, now here's the warning, trigger warning, everybody, because I'm going to describe something that you may not want to hear. So tune out if this isn't your thing, okay?
Skip ahead a couple of minutes.
Skip off. So for me, going to the dentist costs me probably a week and a half, 2 weeks before it, I start struggling in my sleep cycle because I know it's coming up. I start clenching my jaw, grinding my teeth. I have to wear a special plate in my teeth at night that's like this big plastic thing that goes in that so that I can't...
Like a spacer type thing?
Yeah, it keeps my mouth slightly open so I can't clench and I can't grind. But I'm so clever that in my sleep I can flick it out and spit it onto the floor and bam, baby, I can grind and clench all you like. I get to the dentist. I'm just going for the normal clean and... depending how emotional I am about it, sometimes Rob might need to take a half day to get me there and get me home. I'm usually pretty grown up that I can get myself there these days. I've got myself to a point where I feel safe enough to get there and often quite sleep deprived by the time I get there because it's been a couple of weeks in the lead up knowing that I've got to do this thing. Then I've got to sit in a chair that they recline back into, what the dentist chair's like. You're almost back on a whatever degree that is, in the chair. And my mouth is open, my head is back in extension, and my head is in a particular position that mimics a position that I was sexually abused in as a child where my mouth was penetrated. I was held still and it was not a good afternoon. So for me, I hop into that same physical position in the dental chair and there's so much research today on understanding about the fact that the body keeps the score of trauma, that my body, even I can say to myself, I'm an intelligent person. I'm actually quite smart, I've realised. And I can say to myself, I'm at the dentist. This is Sabile, I really like her. I really love Lauren, the nurse. They're really lovely. They're going to care for me. I'm going to be fine. Nothing bad's going to happen. There's no penis going down my throat today. A couple of instruments, she's going to clean, she's going to floss, it's all going to be all right. I'm going to be okay. But my friggin' amygdala goes batshit crazy the moment I'm just put into that position. I can try all I like, buddy, and I cannot stop the memory. I just can't do it. So then it doesn't just stop there. So I have this boring bloody dental clean arrangement. I then often don't go back to work. I have to go home, have to have a cup of tea and a bloody lie down. And I have to kind of debrief. Because for me, it's like I've just been abused all over again. And it's just floods to your brain, floods to my body. Then you think, okay, well, that's okay. Well, I can deal with that. Tomorrow's another day. I'll pray about it. I'll pray for peace. It'll all be okay. But then that night, I grind and I clench. And by that stage, I've usually got such debilitating jaw pain, not caused from the dentist, but caused from the stress and the anxiety of the fact that I've had to go to the dentist and the fact that I've been in the dental chair for a period of time with my mouth open, that my jaw on my left side is in so much pain that I then have to book the physio. So I've paid $140 for the dental clean. I then have to see the physio for jaw physio because of the trauma to my jaw. And that can last for a couple of weeks. I might have a couple of sessions and I can be okay and it can settle itself down. But other times it can be a little bit protracted. It can take a little bit of time to heal and to settle down. So, and I've recently just had my first root canal. So I was in the chair for a long period and I narked myself out. I think I've talked about that in the episode, didn't I? Yeah. Narked myself rotten, but I was still left with, and I'm still dealing with, ongoing jaw pain from that. I'm having to see the physio. Great physio. Gives me great relief and it is getting better. And I have forgiveness issues because it's those sorts of things robs me of normal basic life. Going to the dentist, mate. Normal basic life. I mean, how many women listeners out there have a pap smear every couple of years? I'm telling you, until a couple of years ago, we had to do it annually. It wasn't every 5 years. We had to go, in my generation, we had to go every year for a pap smear. That for me was like the dentist, the same level of trauma for me. And I would have to take a couple of program days off because I knew I wasn't going to cope very well and I needed just to be silent and still and watch Disney movies and cuddle my pillow and do the things that made me feel safe and secure. Normal life thing as being a woman. Using tampons as a young girl. Trauma. Mate, major trauma. Should be a normal process for a young girl. You know, initially it was big trauma for me. So I think, so then every time I have a period, trauma for me. And so, if I find forgiveness is linked to forgetness for me. It's hard for me to forget because my body still holds so much trauma. I could probably find a really good therapist that could probably help me do some desensitizing of my body, maybe in my mind, in regards to that. I probably could. But then I end up resenting paying all the money to get that kind of help when I'm already experiencing pain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, my mind is going back to a few weeks ago. We had that episode with Julie.
Yeah.
And she talked about the process that she went through in getting to a point where those traumatic memories of her past and her abuse went from being like a physical, bodily, almost like re-experiencing the trauma again, to where she is now, where she has managed to integrate that trauma into her being to the point where she can recognize them as memories and doesn't have to physically go through that memory as if it's happening to her again. Is that, I'm interested to hear from you just from my own kind of like understanding of how this works and your own kind of experience living with trauma. Is that, are you still, would you say that maybe you're still in that stage where those memories still kind of manifest physically for you? Like, is that how, like going to the dentist, is that how it feels it's happening again?
100%.
So what would it mean for you? Like
so I can go to the dentist and I can say to myself, Jonty, I'm an intelligent woman. I'm 57. I'm at the dentist. I like Sibyl. I like Lauren. I'm there. I'm in the chair. I'm having a dental procedure. But I can't control what my physiology is actually doing at the time. It's separate from my cognition that's going on here. And so the body is having a reaction to the physical memory of the position that I'm in.
Yeah.
So it then has a trauma response. And so my trauma response can be clenching, grinding, tightening my trapezius muscles, firing all my sternocleidomastoids down the side of my neck. And they tighten without me even knowing that they're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's not something I'm making happen because I'm trying to live peacefully, calm, in a calm state and to not elevate. I'm trying really hard. But my body's doing it regardless of my present brain.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
And so...
I have trouble with forgiveness.
And that's why...
It impacts my life.
Yeah.
It impacts my life.
What would it mean to be able to forgive despite that's... Like if hypothetically you're still in a place where those memories manifest in a physical way, what would it mean to be able to forgive despite that without that necessarily having resolved yet?
I think it'd mean that I'd have to just let it go because at the moment I'm happy for it to take up some rental space in my brain because I quite like hating them. Yeah, I quite like that I hate them. That's not very healthy. I recognise that. It's not healthy. Shit, this is better than $800 worth of therapy, Jonty. Shit. It's quite powerful. I'm going to places I haven't been. Thank you for that. Yeah. I do let them rent. Well, I let myself give them some space in my brain. I give space to them in my brain because I hate them. I'm angry. Yeah, I'm really angry. Yeah. And I think I must somehow link my anger to forgiveness. I wonder if I actually really forgive, not pretend forgive, but deeply, truly take the nappy off and fully park it at the foot of the cross, which I've tried to do many times. I just hold a little bit back each time because there's something about me that likes hating them.
I have not to the same degree, but I certainly experienced that thing. Like, there's something enjoyable and something really satisfying in having a reason to dislike someone, and having a reason to hold a grudge against someone, having a reason, like you said, to hate someone.
Yeah,
that's not something that we actively acknowledge very often, but we all have the capacity to hate people. And not just I don't like that, but truly hate people. And it takes effort.
Yeah, it does.
But the reason we put the effort in sometimes is because, and we won't acknowledge this often, it's kind of enjoyable and it's kind of satisfying.
Yeah. You know what it is? I get to be right about their atrocity. I get to be right that they are evil bastards. And I think that's what hanging on to my rage does for my psyche. And I think in a way I feel like it keeps me safe. Whenever I hate them and don't forgive them, I'm capable of anything. But that comes at a cost to me. It comes at a cost to my level of peace. And it really does.
It's satisfying and enjoyable in a kind of like gorging yourself on a cake or something.
It's gluttony, isn't it?
Until it isn't.
Yeah.
Until it isn't. Like my experience has always been like, at a certain point, I just have to let that shit go.
Yeah.
Because it just eats away at you.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. And that's where the incredibly radical, like the radical grace, love, and inclusion of the gospel actually becomes radical.
Yeah.
When you apply what is the most important commandment? Love God and love others as you love yourself.
Yeah.
When you apply that to those people, that's when it becomes not just annoyingly challenging, but actually life-changingly challenging.
Yeah.
Like being able to look the people who have harmed you in the face and tell them that you love them.
Yep.
And forgive them in a way that isn't expecting them to participate necessarily in that forgiveness. Because going back to that reading, the bit of that article, being able to forgive someone that isn't reliant on them participating is deeply challenging.
Yeah.
And has to come from a place, like you say, of peace.
Yeah.
That I actually don't care if that person accepts my forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because once I've forgiven them, tick.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about them anymore. I can think about them if I want to, but I'm not tied to them in the way that I was. So I don't know, and I'm certainly not trying to pathologize you or speak into your situation, but like that's my thought, and in hearing this from you again is like, what does it look like for someone with that amount of trauma attached to such a small number of people, like the specific people that enacted something on you that has had a lasting effect on your life? What would it mean to be able to forgive, not in a way that they have to participate in, because they're not going to?
Yeah. My sister says it all the time. She was horrified when we found out that he had died. My instant reaction was leapt around the house and asked Rob for where the champagne was. And my sister absolutely thrashed that against me. She was abused by this person as well. And I felt like it was weaponised against me. I just thought it was the greatest sense of celebration that he was dead, because it was about linked with safety for me.
Yeah.
You know.
So would it be true to say that is almost nothing to do with them, but everything to do with
me?
You?
Yeah, that's being safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my little inner child was scared that this could happen again. While ever he roamed the earth, this could happen again. Yeah, I think that's super interesting. It says here, the author says, abuse survivors often fret that they are unable to forgive, and that because of this, there must be something wrong with them. I feel like that.
Is that your experience?
That's how I feel, yeah. It's really relieving to read that. And she says, but who benefits from this? And can I read this comment that she says? She says, I became a bit dubious about some of the academic approaches to forgiveness because many of the authors didn't seem to take trauma into account or to prioritise the long-term needs of the victim. Academics usually define forgiveness along the lines of a process of reducing negative thoughts, feelings and behaviours towards a transgressor, which might be accompanied by evoking positive thoughts, feelings and actions toward the harm doer. Thus, forgiving occurs via a shift in belief, affects and motives. I could probably intellectualise a forgiveness and bullshit to you all, and that could be an interesting podcast, but it wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be real.
Certainly not in the way that Baird is articulating as like a false representation of forgiveness, where you're actually just shifting it and
you're changing your thought feelings.
Oh, they're actually okay, and I am okay with that person, and that behaviour was okay, and
I forgive them for what they did.
I think that is spot on. That is actually harmful, and that perpetuates whatever the behaviour is.
Yep. Joanna North, she's a British philosopher and a professor. She argued in her article, Wrongdoing and Forgiveness, that the value of forgiveness lies in the fact that it is essentially requires a recognition of the wrongdoer's responsibility for his or her action. And secondly, that forgiveness typically involves an effort on the part of the one wronged, a conscious attempt to improve oneself in relation to the wrongdoer. And herein lies the problem. The effort of the one wronged. Is there really a need to improve oneself when you have been harmed? Isn't forgiveness then a burden? I would agree.
Interesting.
Yeah. And what about the idea, Jonty, that, you know, I've heard people say this, and I'm interested to read this in the article. Oh, but forgiveness is a gift. It's a gift. Some kind of a gift, it says, to the person who wronged you seems to be prevalent, right? And Professor Bob Enright, who's a psychologist at the university in the US, known as the father of forgiveness, for his 3 decades on research on the subject, thinks it is more than moving past something or forgetting about it, or, as the meaningless cliche goes, moving on. Enright argues it is also about expressing something positive, some kind of goodness to the person or people who harmed you, whether it is compassion, empathy, or understanding. He says forgiveness is a moral virtue that lives side by side with seeking fairness and should not be confused with reconciliation.
I think that's really profound.
I think it still places a burden on the victim, though.
But placing a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation.
Yeah,
because it removes a responsibility within forgiving for the other person to participate and it to result in like a reconnecting or a repairing of that relationship.
Yes.
I think forgiveness is about you, not about the perpetrator.
Yeah.
So it's about freeing yourself from being tied to the person. And then reconciliation is a whole other thing that I don't think can happen until you've forgiven. But just because you've forgiven someone doesn't mean that you then have to reconcile. The process of reconciling is a whole other thing that takes time. It's like this expectation that as soon as you forgive someone that you're going to be best mates again. Yeah. That's never, almost never the case. That's certainly my experience with like beyond just little tit for tat stuff that it doesn't really have any lasting impact, but like situations where it's been really challenging for me to forgive someone.
Yeah.
Like I think of one example just off the top of my head where like I certainly have forgiven this particular person, but there hasn't really been much in the way of reconciliation yet.
Interesting.
Maybe there might be one day. But that relationship hasn't reconnected in the way that it was before the thing happened, right?
Wow.
Does that make my forgiveness of that person less valuable? I don't think so. No. It just means that in my forgiving that person for their actions and their behaviour that impacted me, they haven't, for whatever reason, taken part in the next step of reconciliation.
Yep.
And that hurt at the time because I kind of go, well, I've forgiven you. Surely now that this is the bit where you say you're sorry and we become friends again, but that just never happened.
Yeah, I've had situations like that.
And I had to learn that I've done my part. There's nothing else I can do to help this situation.
Yes.
I've done what I can. And in the years since, you would not believe how much weight left my shoulders when I forgave that person and no longer had the burden of holding that resentment.
But what about that situation where you do forgive those people for whatever dick move that they did or said or how they behave? It's usually a behaviour, isn't it? And you forgive them. There's a part of me that says, I've seen your potential now and I don't really like what I see. I don't really trust you, your motives, and actually who you present yourself to be, because I've seen this other insidious side to you and I don't really want to have airtime with you ever because I don't trust you. I don't trust you to not hurt me again. I do a lot of that.
That's healthy, I think. Putting up those boundaries.
I do that. Well,
you can do that while still forgiving people.
Yes, I do that a lot. Please don't hear me when I say I don't forgive all people. I've just got a couple that I really don't forgive, and they are linked with my childhood. But the rest of the planet, I seem to be able to forgive.
There's a passage that when we were talking about this before, just immediately jumped to my head. It's in Romans chapter 12. And I'll just read verse 17 through to 21.
Yeah.
this is Paul writing to the Romans. He says, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone."
Yeah.
I find that part really interesting.
Gold. It's a nugget.
Yeah. Do not take revenge, dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath.
Yeah, love that.
For it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay," says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on their head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Yeah.
The idea of God's wrath.
Oh, I love that.
See, that ties a knot in my chest. I don't know what to do with that. I recognize that in situations like this where forgiveness is really difficult and someone has done something really harmful, that the idea of God being wrathful can provide some form of comfort.
Yeah,
is that has. How? Talk to me about that.
Yes, and it has, and for a long, I suppose I clung to the wrath of God for certainly in the early part of my Christian walk. Absolutely. Once I learnt about the wrath of God, I went, oh, I'm loving this God character. This is just like power 101. God's like my number one avenger. God's going to kick ass in the end. And I've talked many times about hoping that there was a viewing platform where I could watch God's wrath on reruns when my perpetrators die. Could I please, when I get to heaven, God, could I please watch the reruns of what you did to them and how they burn and roasted in hell? But that's not forgiveness. And I've kind of moved past that. I've kind of moved past the need for that. So I think in a way I've probably done some healing on the forgiveness journey, because I used to think and say and feel and believe that I needed to know that God would avenge me in a way. Do you know what I mean? And sort that shit out on my behalf. But you know what? You know, when you get old enough, and you've been around long enough, and people do mean things or say mean things to you or about you, to others, and you hear about it. God's really interesting. I don't think we need to wait till we die to see God's wrath. I think that actually can happen. It's prevailing on earth. And I've had times when I've sat back and watched things roll out in time, and I watch how maybe somebody's being taught a lesson in their own walk with life, and maybe God's managing that and teaching them a lesson along the way, and watching those people that have hurt you grow themselves into better people. I love seeing that. I think that's fantastic. But I have sat in that wrath thing for years, feeling comfort and peace, knowing that God's got my back. God is like a big lion there protecting me. Yeah, that gave me huge comfort for much of my Christian journey. I probably need that less and less now, that thought that God is a vengeful God. I need that less and less. Maybe that's a sign of forgiveness or letting go or something. Wish it had helped my jaw.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. I'm going to have to think some more about how I feel about God's wrath and how that fits in with grace and justice and forgiveness. And
me too. It's challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it good that we're not cooked and perfect and baked? Do you know what I mean? We're still works in process.
Yeah. I remember from a really young age, In Christ Alone was a song that we would sing all the time at church, which at one point says, "And on that cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied."
Yeah. Wow.
And I went, oh.
Yeah. I remember having to remove that line. One of the places I was singing, they didn't like that line, so we'd had to take it out.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah,
challenging. Yeah, I'm going to have to think more about that. There's another thing in this article that we should bring up before we wrap this up.
Let me bring it up. She says, another complicating factor in regards to forgiveness is that many perpetrators of domestic abuse see themselves as victims. It's part of their modus operandi. And there was a study in 2020 based on an in-depth interviews with 15 partners who had been together between 4 and 30 years found that the male batterers perceived forgiveness confusingly out of their dual self-perception as both perpetrator and victim. However, whether as a perpetrator or a victim, they clung to the position of forgiver. The issue of forgiveness preserved the status quo. So she says that forgiveness, in other words, can result in impunity.
Yes. I mean, this goes back to something we were talking about right at the beginning of this conversation about a form of forgiveness that actually affirms and allows the behaviour to continue.
Yeah.
I.e. provides the perpetrator with impunity.
Yeah.
And I think, like you see that most explicitly and most vividly in situations of abuse.
Yep.
Where in forgiving the abuser, the victim actually because even in saying that, I'm placing responsibility on the victim. But like the perpetrator receives the forgiveness as a green light to continue the behaviour because it doesn't.
Smashing it out of the
there's
ballpark.
no consequences other than forgiveness.
100%. She says if a tiny fraction of sexual assaults are reported and a tiny fraction of those end up in court, then a tiny fraction of those charged end up convicted. We have an entire system that's weighted against victims and then pushes towards against the ability to forgive. We actually have a culture that often pressures victims to forgive but allows abusers to fly free. I mean, we see that in the corporate world as well, don't we? People get away with all sorts of bad behaviour and go on to, great jobs in other places, and they've had poor bullying behaviour maybe in a corporate setting, and then they just get a check gets signed and you all of a sudden you've just looking for another job, you've changed, having a career move, and then they you move off into another pharmaceutical company and you're able to commit the same behaviours because you're not changed.
Yeah.
You're not changed or altered. Your MO is your MO and you're going to continue operating in that way. And if you're a narcissist, you're not even bloody aware of the behaviour. You just are.
Or you're 2 or 3 levels above the behaviour from which you can actually manipulate it and
clever.
And pretend almost that you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
To manipulate the way that you're perceived.
Exactly.
Because I think people, certainly me in my own reflection, can think of forgiveness as like a one-size-fits-all solution, as if when you forgive someone, there's no room for anything else to go alongside that.
Right.
Whereas I actually think it's really important. Sure, you can forgive someone, but you have to actually also maintain that there are consequences for behaviour. So, for example, I can't think of a real-life example at the moment, but like hypothetically someone does something that's harmful towards me, I can forgive them, but then also say, don't do that shit again.
Yeah.
Like, I forgive you, but it's actually important that you understand that that isn't okay. And then if it does happen again, you've already forgiven them.
Yeah.
You've now put up a boundary, and if they cross that boundary a second or third time, keep that boundary up and enact the consequences.
Yeah, I'm not great at that.
Don't hang out with them again. Don't put yourself in whatever situation it is. Block them. Do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
That isn't mutually exclusive with forgiveness.
Yeah.
I think because if forgiveness is something that's actually as much for you as it is for the perpetrator,
right,
maintaining that stance of I forgive you, but this thing can't continue. That I think that actually is possible, and not only is possible, but is probably actually like important and necessary for forgiveness to actually have any meaning. Because as was pointed out in this article, the alternative is forgiveness that just repeats and repeats and repeats and allows that behaviour to continue in a way that's harmful. And
you know how people say, oh, she's just like that, or he's just like that. It's just the way he is. Don't let it bother you. No, mate.
It's not okay.
No, it's not okay. And my issue is I will love you and care for you and do anything for you, but if you betray my trust or hurt me deeply, I have trouble in trusting you ever again.
Yeah.
I'll forgive the behaviour, but mate, you're not back in my circle, sorry.
Yeah.
Not doing it.
I've certainly experienced the same thing.
I won't. I just won't, because actually I like to think that that's just being smart, and I'm sure that God makes comments about hanging out with fools. I'm sure he does, and people that behave like that are fools, in my opinion. You know, so yes, I'll forgive 100%.
Doesn't mean you have to.
No, not interested in being your bestie ever again.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and that isn't.
And I think that's okay.
Not only is it okay, I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
But it's also not a full stop.
No.
I think the nature of grace and forgiveness isn't that you make that decision and then all of a sudden you've just permanently cut them out. I feel, and this is something that I'm wrestling with at the moment actually, is like, what is a healthy level of leaving that door ajar for them?
Sure.
And going, I do forgive you, and we did have a relationship. I want that relationship to continue, but while you are doing X, Y, and Z, I can't. Yeah. That isn't going to happen.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
I think having those conditions.
Boundary.
Yeah, having those conditions, and if those conditions are met,
healthy.
See what happens.
Yeah.
But if it starts up again, that boundary is already in place.
Yeah, that's good, Jonty. I think that's real. You sound so healthy. This is why you're the senior pastor around here.
Look, it's easy to say these things, but putting them in practice is a lot harder.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit black and white on it. I don't know how good that is or healthy that is, but
I think
I'm really honest about it.
I almost think that my perspective comes from being a position too far in the other direction.
Right.
Where I've been a bit of a doormat in the past.
Okay, that's
and let
interesting.
people walk on me.
That's interesting.
And it's actually been a growth and a journey that I've had to go on in being comfortable enough with my own sense of self to put those boundaries in place with people.
Yeah.
Because I would say that in the past, and I'm make this very clear, not comparing any of my experiences to those of people that have experienced abuse, but I certainly have gone through experiences where people have done things wrong by me and I have not been okay with it, but I haven't put up the necessary boundary to communicate to the person that it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And then a year later, 2 years later, you bring it up and they go, why didn't you say something earlier?
Yeah.
And then that's when that narcissistic playing the victim thing comes in, where they can be like, you never brought this up as anything that was not okay, and all of a sudden I'm the victim here when, or I'm the, when you're that far down the other end of the spectrum, it can be really challenging to pull yourself out of being in that position.
Got to call it out.
Yeah.
Got to call it out.
As my partner says, I've just got to be more comfortable being a dick sometimes.
Oh, or just being really real. And that takes balls.
Yeah.
It really does, calling out poor behaviour.
I'm a people pleaser. So the idea of like saying, hey, what you did isn't okay. 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would borderline have a panic attack at the idea of saying that to someone.
Well, isn't it? I find that interesting because you can, we've had times, Jonty, when you've texted me late at night and given me a serve about things, and I really appreciate what you have to say. So you do have balls. I've watched you do it. And
it's a muscle I've had to grow.
I'm a strong person, and you gave it to me, so, and of which I really appreciate. So yeah, grow that muscle, brother, because it's excellent. It's kick-ass. Can I read you the Pastor Nadia Boltzweber?
Yeah, please.
This is what she says about forgiveness. A way of wielding bolt cutters and snapping a chain that links us to arseholes, thereby freeing us from there. And I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It really does. Just cutting the bolts from the arseholes.
Because I think part of forgiveness is distancing yourself from the behaviour.
I agree.
When you stoop to the level of like...
Oh, yeah.
In not forgiving someone and just participating in that cycle...
Yeah.
You're swimming in polluted water. Like you're remaining a part of that environment. When you find it within yourself to be able to forgive someone.
Yeah.
I think what that quote so beautifully illustrates is like you're separating yourself
that's right.
from the bullshit.
Yeah, that's right.
That's their problem
she
now.
She says assholes and she's a minister. I love her.
We've said worse on this podcast.
I love her.
But yeah, you're distancing yourself from that bullshit. You're there's a famous Jim Jeffries bit about, making like when you forgive and be the bigger person, eventually everyone else will see that they are the dickhead. They're the asshole, not you. And you can't separate yourself from that until you forgive them and actually move on. Not for them, not for their sake, for your own sake.
Can I wrap with what this author says? She says this. This is what forgiveness is not.
Great.
Condoning, excusing, pardoning, justifying, erasing, absolving. It is not suggesting justice be shrugged off or consequences forgiven. It is extremely difficult to forgive in a culture of no consequence. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
That's a really powerful statement to finish on, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and let us know what you think.
We'll pop the article below, hey.
Yeah. Send us an email.
Have a read.
Jump in the Facebook group and start a conversation about this.
Yeah. Rip into me. Absolutely. Give me all the hate you need. I'm good for it. I'm up for it.
And I think before we move on to an audience question, thank you for being so open to. I prodded you pretty hard this week.
Yeah, you went. Sorry, that was a bit like therapy, Jonty. But I think it was good. I can see my own progress. I think, and my own healing. I just wish it didn't my abuse didn't physiologically impact me like it does. It's a waste of time and money. That's how I get the shits with it. Drives me nuts, Yeah, it pisses me off. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Why don't we finish with an audience question?
Please.
James Watson, friend of the show. Hello.
Hi, James. New
Thanks
friend.
for the question. Asked us what our biggest takeaway was from our recent live show, which if you haven't caught, we put it up in the podcast feed a couple of weeks ago when this comes out, so you can go back and listen to that if you weren't able to be there. Well, I mean, for me, it was and I spoke about this briefly a couple of weeks ago, a weird learning experience for me. Almost, there are a couple of takeaways I had from the conversation itself, but if I can speak about that event in general, I, like I had mentioned before on a previous podcast, lost a family member that afternoon.
Yep, hours before.
That afternoon. And I really struggled, but learned a lot about how my brain and body manages that.
Wow.
It was really weird going back and doing an edit of that episode for the podcast because I had no memory of most of the conversation.
Oh, far out. Man.
Almost none. Because I think something I've learned about myself is when I should have been, in theory, experiencing deep grief and loss, but was at this event where I'm hosting and facilitating a panel discussion and there were a bunch of people there and it was really great energy and vibe in the room and lots of excitement and it was excellent.
Yep.
But for me, in my own kind of personal experience, it was like the complete opposite of that.
Yep.
And so experiencing that and learning how I handled that, I didn't intentionally handle it any particular way, I just did.
Yep.
Was interesting because I kind of, me and some friends, James included, who sent the question in, went to the pub afterwards and I don't really remember what we spoke about at the pub either, and it's like I kind of woke up again 48 hours later. And that's a new experience for me. I hadn't dissociated in that way before. Maybe I had, but not to that degree where it was like I literally just went, oh, that's a big emotion and thing I got to deal with. I don't have time for that right now. I literally just don't have, unless I'd just gone home and handed it over to you, which you would have handled perfectly, I'm sure. But I literally just picked it all up, put it in a box, put the lid on and just pushed it to one side and then opened it up again a couple of days later, which was necessary, unfortunately, but I kind of like pleased.
It's quite a skill.
I kind of surprised myself with how I was able to do that.
It's just, I can relate to that from a perspective of dissociative behaviour, where I've had no memory and then I will operate in a way that looks like I'm functioning and doing quite well. It's quite a clever skill set to be able to dissociate, but it also is triggered by trauma. So you're in grief and trauma when that happened. It's not something that normal people can just go, now I'm going to disassociate. It's just happened.
Yeah, it just happened. Yeah.
It's like a survival technique. Yeah, I'm sorry that you had that experience. You did real well. Nobody would have known. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's what surprised me about
it. Scary, really, isn't it? Yeah, it's almost like an amnesia.
Yeah.
In a way.
But I think, like, if I'm answer the question probably in the spirit that it was intended, about where we're going next with church and faith, I think one of the big things that I kind of already had this sense of, but really was reaffirmed in the conversation, was this idea that, like, the community of Christians and followers and faith communities is so much bigger than what church is.
Yeah.
And while I do kind of think that, like, I don't really care necessarily what happens to the church. Yep. I'm more interested in what the community of God does and how the gospel moves. But I also do, like, in reflection after that conversation, like, there is so much, like, capacity and actually that there is a desire within the church to see, like, almost like a snake shedding the skin, to be like, all of this stuff that we do isn't working.
Yeah.
That's not to say, like, to toss the baby out with the bathwater, but, like, some of this stuff actually does need to be shed.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by how many people were not just open to that, but, like, willingly, like, wanting to participate in that. Not for the sake of shedding things, but for the sake of providing space for the new thing.
Yeah,
whatever
absolutely.
that looks like.
And I think the beautiful thing that my takeaway was all of that, but also the fact that we've come so far in 45 years as a movement. I think young people at the moment, what generation are they?
Well, it depends how young.
Say they're 22.
Gen Z.
They don't know what it was like in the 60s or the 70s of Methodist Uniting Church, 70s Uniting Church. They don't remember. They weren't even born at that stage. They've got no memory. They just think it's old-fashioned now. Mate, go back 45 years. We have come a long way in that time in terms of, inclusion for one. You know, we're one of the movements that are inclusive, you know, in terms of Christian faith. And to be so proud of that. We have not to say that we stop there. We've got a ton of a way to go. But I think to acknowledge the fact that we have come so far, for me I was encouraged by that.
Yeah.
Because if we've come that far in this amount of time, when we are on the couch, Jonty, and I'm in my 80s, I would like to think we do that kind of movement and growth again.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that we can progress that far.
There's the Reverend Dr. Peter Powell used the image of Grover in Sesame Street, who wants to get there.
Yeah.
And they use it as the show uses it as explaining to kids the difference between here and there. And he goes, well, I want to be there. So he goes over there and he goes, I must be there now. And they say, no, you're here.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, okay. And then he goes back and he goes, see, I'm there now. And no, now you're here. We're only ever actually here, where we are now.
That's right.
It's really healthy and actually important to have an aspiration to be there.
Yes.
Knowing that we're never actually going to reach it. The point being that we're still moving in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to celebrate where we are now, like you say, when we look back and go, wow, look how far we've come.
Yep.
But then not to go, great, we made it, we're there.
Yeah.
No. That means we're moving in the right direction. Keep going.
Because you know what I'm worried about? I am worried that, you know how in lots of churches there's the whole debacle about music. We've got to sing How Great Thou Art. We've got to sing Amazing Grace. They're the best songs ever and let's sing those songs. Yeah, they were the number one hits back in the 40s and 50s. They were the shout to the Lord of the day, right?
Yeah.
Now, Shout to the Lord was a 90s hit by Darlene.
It's 30 years old.
It's 30 years old. I am worried if I get to 80 and I'm saying to the next generation of leaders, oh, why aren't you playing Shout to the Lord or Waymaker? I want to hear those songs. No, I think, shit, is it something that all generations have to manage? I wonder.
I think it is.
Yeah.
That's just by like nature of who we
love
are
what
as
we
humans.
love.
Exactly. We curate the things that we like and that make us feel
Of
safe and comfortable at
course.
church. But of course, being comfortable isn't always a good thing. Like
And,
evolutionarily
yeah,
speaking,
that's right,
being comfortable
no.
means you're about to get eaten by a tiger.
A monster. That's exactly right.
You got to be always moving
Yeah.
forward and growing and being alert. And so
Yeah.
I certainly, and again, this is one of those things that's super easy to say,
Yeah.
really hard to actually put into practice, is identifying when the difference between being comfortable in moving forwards versus actually being comfortable in a way that is meaning that you've stopped moving.
Yeah. Can I give you an example of something really interesting along these lines? I like to think that I do church that shakes up the normal in my Sunday church routine. And I try to transform the worship experience into something that is very different from what my congregation has experienced in the past.
Yeah.
And I have a crack at it anyway. I do things like ask questions of the community, and I will move with a roving mic for their answers. Theological questions and conversations, and I want to crack open stuff where we can talk about it, where I'm not the font of all knowledge, that I want to know what they have to say. How does God inform them about whatever the topic is that we're discussing, right? I love doing that because it makes it much more holistic and much more informative. Now, everybody learns from everybody, and it cleaves the community together because we're all learning things about one another. So then I've got Ilya Seri, who's doing a POD with us at the moment, and Ilya Seri gets up to preach. Bloody Ilya Seri bloody starts asking questions of us in the community. I'm sitting there wanting to have like a nice morning of just listening to his sermon, and he starts doing what I do. And I was really uncomfortable. I found myself really uncomfortable in having to, and he shoves the mic in my face and asks me, what do you think, Rev Ness? And I'm going, hang on a minute, ask Lynn, I haven't come up with an answer to that. And I felt uncomfortable and weird about it. So it was so good. I thought, oh yeah, I've got to keep doing that thing, because it was a real learning thing for me.
Yeah.
To know how my people feel when I'm actually doing that to them. I'm stretching them like Ilya Seri stretched me in that moment.
It's like the practice of like training at the gym.
Right.
Once the weight becomes too easy, you don't go, oh, job done, great, I don't have to go to the gym. No, put more weight on it.
5 kilos, up she goes.
Exactly.
That's right.
So you always got to be looking at the like where theologically or in our church practice have we got to the point where we're comfortable lifting that weight and we kind of, great, tick, I'm good.
Smashing that one.
Time to put more weight on.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Top convo.
Yeah, and thanks for the question, James. It's a good question.
Yeah, it was a great one.
I'd be curious to hear if, and we've got a bunch more questions from that show that we'll pick up when we have those guests back on.
Amazing.
To pick up those conversations. But if I'd like to, put that question to our listeners as well. What was the biggest takeaway that you had from that live show? We'd love to hear. So get in touch, email address down below, or join the conversation in the Facebook group.
Please.
And welcome to all those new people that have been joining the group in the last couple of weeks. It's good to see it continuing to grow in that community. And we just love, we love when the conversation gets beyond just what we do here on the podcast, because I think that's the point. That's one of the things that I feel really strongly about faith communities moving forward is I think this is a faith, I don't think this is a faith community. It is a faith community of listeners, and to see the conversations go beyond what we talk about here on the show. Yeah. That's why we do it. So if you want to be a part of it, join up.
And I'm wondering, does anybody want to come to Bilgola Plateau and I can host an event for us?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of...
Come down to the Northern Beaches and we can do a thing. Let us know if you want to come.
The options and opportunities for things we can do as a group.
Yeah, we can do a bit of a mini home church night. Just crack it open, have just a conversation, just be friends, just hang out. If you want to do that and you're happy for the drive, let's do it.
100%. Yeah. Do you want to start a book club? Do you want to start a film club? Are you short a Bible study? You need a Bible study?
Yeah.
Let us know. I think that's...
I'd be happy to host one of those, or at least facilitate the group and the group hosts it.
Yeah.
I could do that at my place if people were interested to come to my home.
Yeah.
There's an offer.
Join the Facebook group if you're interested. We'll see you there. I think that does us. Are there any final thoughts?
No, it was a good conversation. Please forgive me for not being very forgiving. Can I just say that?
Yeah, forgivenessception.
Yeah. Lord help me.
We'll be back next week. I can't remember at the top of my head what's up next week.
Something good.
The order often changes in the edit. But we'll be back next week. Join us tomorrow if you're into the Word listener. We'll be continuing our journey through the fruits of the Spirit.
Yes.
If you're new to Into the Word, come join us. It's good for 10 minutes in and out. We just chat about a Bible study, about a Bible passage, and we're going through the fruits of the Spirit. Galatians. Come join us there. If not, we'll see you right back here next week for the next episode of Filthy Hope.
Thanks for chatting.
Yeah, you too. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you then.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that is in your